So, uh, so we're going to be running this series called Python for Data. And then in order to do this, I want to use I just intend using this product IDX. It's actually in beta, uh, but it's actually kind of like a place where you could do all your development, like front end, back end. Like it has templates for like web app, back end, mobile, AI, and ML, and miscellaneous. So basically, the way you access this product IDS is actually coming to your browser and just getting this idx.google.com, and then it opens. And then when it opens, for me, generally, if I want to work with a Python project, for example, I could just come here where I have my templates here. I could just come for backend, and then I could just choose any of the Python projects here. So I could just say Python Flask. And basically here, I just need to provide like Python, for example, for data. And then with this, I just choose my package manager. So the package manager is basically how you install package into your project, and then I click on create. So this is basically all you need to do to set up your workspace to start working on your Python project. So when you look at the folders here, you discover that I've deleted other folders that I don't really need. And then I created this folder called Python for Data. So within this folder, I'm going to be creating a file here called data types. And I'm going to end it with .py. So any file you want to create has to end with .py. So that's the Python extension for the file. So now we have this file. So in order for us to write a very simple Python program, we're going to say, like, for example, print. And then we're going to pass in like hello. And then when we execute it here, you see, basically, let me delete some of the. So when we execute it here, look at what we get. So we get hello. So I'm going to right click on this panel and change the panel position. So this is the panel where when we run our code. So I'm going to change the panel position to right. So to make it easy for us to kind of like follow, then I'm going to double click here to hide this Explorer. So I'm going to drag the panel a little bit to the middle, and then I'm going to clear here. So basically this is how you write your very simple Python programs. You just say print, and then it prints hello. So the next thing we want to do is that we want to kind of like look into comments. So the way you type comments in Python is just to put a pound sign. So like this. So you just say, this is a comment. So you say, this is a comment. So if you want to create a multi-line comment, you can like use, like you make sure that this is like 3 in front. These quotes, you have like 3 quotes on top and then 3 quotes down. You see, and then this is a multi-line comment. Then you could add whatever you want to add to it. So you could add like whatsoever you want inside of here. You could like add so many lines of comments. So this is a single line comment and this is a multi-line comment. The next thing we want to talk about is variables. So we want to talk about variables. So this is mostly one of the first thing you want to know what variables are. So variables are containers where we store value or data. So you want to like, for example, if you create this, if you say, for example, X is equals to 5, and you say Y equals to Eric. So these are variables. So you are storing the value 5 inside of X. So X is just a container where you store the value 5. And same for Y. Y is also a container where you store the value Eric. So there are kind of like conventions on how we name these variables. So you don't just name them anyhow. And you follow this set of rules. So we're going to see them now. So for example, a variable name must start with a letter or an underscore. A variable name cannot start with a number. So we can, for example, come and start a variable name with like 4s equals to 5 or equals to 67, for example. So you see, it's already complaining here that invalid decimal. So but when we put something like the s in front and make it like this, so this is okay. So you could start, so it must start with a letter. So you don't start with a number. So that's one of the things you take out of here. And definitely you could name some stuffs like this. So you could say, for example, you could say, just like we said, Y equals to Eric. So we could use a combination of letters. For example, we could say Yats equals to Eric. So it works. So, and you could even put an underscore here and just put like Yats FF equals to Eric. This also works. So let's talk about the data types in Python. So the data types are basically the kind of data. So for example, this data has a type. So this is a number, and then this is text, which in Python we call string. So we're just going to be going through a host of the data type. And the first data type we're going to be talking about is the non-type. So we're going to talk about the non-type. So what's the non-type? So the non-type holds nothing. So it's basically when something holds nothing. So you say, for example, here we say tin equals to none, meaning that it holds nothing. So basically here, the way you know about the type of something is by using this keyword. Like you just say, for example, like type, and then you pass whatever you want to check. For example, the type of 1. So the type of 1 is definitely a number. So if we decide to print here, we're going to see int because it's an integer. So that's how you get the type of something. So the same thing here, the type of tin will be none. So if I execute this now, you see here, the type of 1 was int, this line, and then the type of tin was none. So this is how you basically deal with knowing the type of a particular variable. So the first type we just talked about here is the non-type. So the next type we're going to talk about, so none is like, there's no value associated with it. It's just the none. So it's of type non-type. So there's another type we're going to talk about. That is type Boolean. So Boolean. So what are Booleans? So Boolean is when something is either true or false. So let's see an example here. So we have is done equals to true, is not done equals to false. And the way we also look for the type of something, so we could also kind of get the statement around here and kind of say the type of is done. And when we pass in is done here, you discover that the type of is done is going to be Boolean. So that means, so, and we use this a lot in Python. We'll soon see a lot. For example, I could do something like this. I could print and I could compare 5 equal to 5. So this double equal to is kind of like comparison. So it's more or less like you're asking a question if 5 is equals to 5. And then when you execute this, guess what you get? You get true. Because, and then when we change this value to like say 6, we're going to get false. So false will appear towards the end. So that's how you use Boolean. But we'll dive deep into these types. Now it's just an introduction to all the data types we have in Python. So the next one we're going to talk about, let me comment out this ones. So we've talked about the non-type and the bool. So the next one we're going to be talking about is the string type. So we're going to talk about the text type. So basically the text type. So the text type. So the text type is, for example, if I want to write the name of a person. So basically the combination of characters in Python, we call it a string. So as you see here, for example, the name person equals to John, name underscore person equals to John. So this is a string. So if we print the type of name of person, look at what we get string. So this is the text type in Python. So let's talk also about the numeric types. So in numeric types, we have 3 of the types we're going to be talking about now. So we're going to talk about the int, float, and complex. We've already seen the int here where we created type of 1. So, but we're going to see like how we can actually define them in Python. So we're going to see the int, the float, and the complex. So let me give you an example here. So here you see this is my int equals to -5. So if this is being printed, here, we see that it's going to say -5 is an int, and then the float 56.5. So when you have values that are not, you say convert a string to a floating point number. So let's see. So okay, this is instance is a float. That's what it's just telling us there. So it says float, and when we move it to this one now, look at it. Instance is complex. So even within the ID here, you could easily know that the type of each of this instance. But with the help of this type statement, when we also execute this script, we could also see that this is of class int, this is of class float, and then this is of type complex. The other one we have to talk about. So if you notice so far, we've been talking about single value types, like things that have a single value. For example, like my int equals to -5. This is a single value. This is a single value. So the next type we're going to be talking about is sequence type. So this is actually has to do with collections of values. So one of them is called the list, the other is called the tuple, and the other is called the range. So let's see how list and tuple works. Then we're also going to see how range works in a moment. So this is a list. So we created a list here called my list. And then here is how you assess the first element of this my list. So for example, you say my list of 0 equals to 56. It means that you are changing the value of the 1 to 56. So it changes the value of 1 to 56. So let's comment out this one and actually print this list. So you see what is going to happen here, that the value here was 1, 2. It now changed to 56, 2, because this position, the position of 0 here is at index 1 is at index 0 and 2 is at index 1. So exactly like this. So 1 is at index 0 and 2 is at index 1. So when we say my list of 0 equals to 56, we're actually changing the value at position 1 to 56. That's why when we print the list, we have 56 and 2. So the next thing we're going to talk about is in line 68 is the tuple. So a tuple is a little bit different from the list. So let me kind of go down a little bit. So but the indexing is still the same. So 1 is at index 0, 2. So the same way we did for a list, we will try to do it for a tuple. So this is going to actually give us an error, because one of the difference between a list and a tuple is that although you can change the value of a list, you can't do that to a tuple. So this is what we talk about: mutability and immutability. So that means that lists are mutable while tuples are immutable. So we can't change this. When we try to do this, it will say we are trying to assign an item to an element of the type tuple. So look at it. You're going to see here, tuple object does not support item assignment. So you get this error here. So tuple is kind of like an immutable data type in the Python. So that's just one of the difference between them. If not, they have the same indexing, the same way you can actually get a value from both the list and the tuple. So let's talk about the range. So the next one we're going to talk about is the range. So in the range, I'm going to provide us like 3 kind of possibilities to use the range so that we see how it works. So the first one here is that we could, for example, say range equals to range of 10. So basically what is happening here is that we are actually creating a range of numbers from 0 all the way to 10. So let's see what happens when we decide to print this range of 1. So let's comment out this. So when we decide to print the range of 1 here, look at what happens. So we have it that is the range of 0 to 10. So if you want to actually see the number here, what I'm doing is actually in line 78, I'm actually changing the range of 1 to a list. So I'm wrapping it in this list constructor so that it's going to change to a list, so that we can actually print it here on line number 79 and see how the range of numbers we've actually generated looks like. And when we execute this, look at what we get. So we get numbers ranging from 0 all the way to 9. So the same thing for the second example now. Here we just passed one single number. So this is a stop. So when you passed 10 here, you're actually saying you are providing when the range will stop. So this won't be included in the range. For example, it means that you are starting at 0 and stopping at 10. That's when it means when you put 10 here. But when you decide to put, for example, 2 here in this example, so you're specifying that it's going to start at position 2 and stop at position 10. So 10 will not be included in the range. So let's execute this one and you see. So you see here that for the second instance, it started at 2 and stopped at 9. 10 wasn't included. So this is, if you decide to put the first element here, it means that you are starting at 2 and stopping at 10. So let's see the third example. So in the third example, we are actually passing 3 different parameters into the range function. And basically, the first one is the start, the second one is the stop, and the third one is the step. So let's see what happens now. So when we execute this, what you see here is that we get 2 as a starting point. Then it takes a step of 3 at a time. So you see, the next one after 3 will be 5. You see, 2 plus 3, you get 5. 5 plus 3, you get 8. If we decide to change this one to 2, you see that the next one will start with 2, and then it will be 2 plus 2, you get 4. So the same ways, look at what happens at the end here. So this is what they call the step. This is the stop, and this is the start. So this is about, for now, this is okay about range. As we talk about other data structures and see how we can combine them together into a program, you get a better understanding how everything is being wrapped together to write your programs. So the other type we are going to talk about is called the dictionary type. So it's called a mapping type. An example is a dictionary. So how does it work? So just like you have your dictionary in the dictionary where you have like some text, for example, you could have like or a form you're filling on the internet. So when you're filling a form, for example, where you put like your first name and you provide the value of Eric, and then you provide last name and you provide the value of John. So in this term, this first name is what you call the key, and then this Eric is what you call the value. So that's how dictionary works. So they come in key value pairs. So they come in pair. So their elements are in pair, which means the first part of it is the key and the second part. So let's see a dictionary. So I'm going to be defining the dictionary here called mydic. So let's look at how the dictionary is. So you see here that in this dictionary, we have first name as Eric, and then we have age as 60. We have school as Unibo and friend as Romaric. So that means for what I can do now is that I can decide to get a single element from this list. For example, I could get Eric from the key. So then the way you do that is that it has two ways of doing it. You either say mydict dot, then you do the get, and then you pass in the key. So the key in this case is first underscore name. So you see here, this one, if we decide to print whatever we have here, so we decide to print. So you see, this will give us Eric. So let's see what happens. So let's clear our terminal here so that we see the result clearly. So you see, we get Eric here as the last argument here. So you see, we get Eric, showing that you can do mydict.get. So another convention is, although there are differences, but I will not want to talk about it now until when we start using it in a practical scenario. So you're going to see it better. So we do mydict, for example, and then we use this square brackets here. Here we can just provide the key. You see, first name. This also works exactly like this, but with some modification. Exactly like this, but this has like some advantages. I will show you that quickly. I wanted to keep it for a later time, but let me show you, for example. Let's assume that you want to get a value that does not exist. You know, we don't have first name as a key here. We have name. So what happens is that with this get, you can decide to provide a second argument here and say not found. So basically what you're saying is that when you try to get this value here, if it's not available, you can return not found. So, and you see here, you see we get not found. So this is very helpful, particularly when you want to try to access keys of a dictionary that do not exist. So this makes a lot of sense in that scenario. But this is going to run into an error when you try to pass in this, for example, first name that doesn't exist. You see that it will tell you that the key, look at, you see key error. So in order to write programs that don't crash, you could definitely use this one instead of this. So let's look at other things we could do with dictionary. I want to just quickly show you what we could do with dictionary. So one of the things we could do is we could get just the keys. So the keys is, for example, when I showed you here that first name is the key and Eric is the value. So we could decide to print all the keys of this dictionary. We could also decide to print all the values, and we could decide to print both the keys and the values. So the way you do that is by using this mydict.keys, mydict.values, and mydict.items. So let's see how they work by actually executing the script. So let's do clear, and then we're going to just get this. So you see the first one here is printing the keys. So the keys are just the first part of the pair. So they are pairs, more like colleagues. So you have first name, you have Eric. So the keys is this part. So first name, age, school, and friend. So you see them here. And then the values are actually the other part, which is the values Eric, 60, and the same thing with the items. So the items gives you both. It gives you both the keys and the value. So let me bring it all the way here. You see the items here, we're getting the key and the value as tuples. We talked about tuple when we talked about the sequence types here. So we talked about tuple. So this is a tuple, and then this is a list. So let's look at another type in Python. So what we're going to be talking about now is the set types. So there are actually two here that we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be talking about set and frozen set. So basically, what is a set? So I'm just going to show you what a set is, and then I'm briefly going to talk about what frozen set is also. So look at the set here. So here we have these values here, 1, 1, 2, 4, 4. So what happens is that if I try to print this my set here and say print my set. So let's try to, let's comment out this part. So we'll come back to that. So look at what happens. The set eliminates all repetitions. So that's basically what the set does here. So 1 occurs twice, and it's going to take 1 out of this, and 4 occur twice too. You're going to get 1 value out of that. So mostly if you keep adding values to a set, even though you add like multiple values, it's going to keep just a single entry. So, and that's what it do. And you could also add values to a set like this, and you can remove values for a set. So for example, here I went ahead to add 56, and I also removed 2. So, and then the final value of my set, this is how it's going to look like. So you see, we removed 2. There's no longer 2 in the set, and then we added 56. So there's a new member to the set called 56. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is the frozen set. So if you remember, we always have this, when we talked about mapping types, sequence type, we had list and tuple. They were exactly the same somehow. But the major thing was that the list here was mutable. That means you could change an item like we did in line number 64, while the tuple was not. So for set 2, you have a colleague of it called frozen set. So it behaves almost exactly like set. So as you could see here, I created a frozen set. So you use this function called frozen and pass in the set. So basically what it means is that you could actually see that it works exactly. So when you see towards the end, you see this is the frozen set. It also removes those duplicate values and you have 1, 2, 4. But the only difference between them is that if you, for example, come here and do my set and put a dot, you see that you will see add, you could also see pop, you could see discard, remove, whatever. But when you come to the frozen set and do my set 2, which is actually dot, you don't see add here. So that means one of them is actually mutable and one of them is immutable. So, and guess what? The set is mutable while the frozen set is immutable. So you can actually use the frozen set as even a key to a dictionary. Let's talk about the last type that I'm going to be talking about today. That's the binary types. So we're going to talk about the binary types. So the binary types are basically bytes, byte array, and memory view. So let's talk about byte. So just the way we had set and frozen set, one was mutable and one was immutable. So you have also the concept of bytes and bytes array. So let's see. So bytes are like 8-bit integers. So basically you use them for like to store binary data. So for example, like an image or like some socket connect, like so in networking, maybe to transfer like some packets or whatever. So now you have like, by just specifying this B in front of it, it becomes a byte. And by passing byte array, so byte array can be changed. For example, now we could do some, when we do data dot, you see here, we don't have anything here to append to it because you cannot, it's like, it's constant the way it is. But for the message, which is a byte array, we could definitely just say message dot, and you could see we could have an append function to it. So basically, this is binary data. So this is how you hold binary data in Python. So you either use this bytes or byte array. So the memory view is much different. Is that you create the memory view on top of either bytes or byte array. So you either say, so you just say memory view. So this is the view equals to memory view of this message. So created on top of the byte array. So if you open it here, you say create a new memory object which references the given object. So that's exactly what this one does. So it creates a memory object which references. So it references this message object. So basically with this view, you will be able to modify this message, but it doesn't actually own the message. The message is just a reference. So as you see here. So basically this is where I come to the end of this overview of Python data types. So we will continue to definitely bring you more content, particularly as it relates to Python for data engineering. And I hope that you like and you subscribe to this channel.